Hello, my name is Jason Green. I'm one of the pastors here at Compassion Church in Radford. Thank you for joining me this morning in your busy day, because I'm sure it's already gotten started, and I appreciate the time you would take to share in this morning's devotional. If it's something that ministers to you, make sure you like and share it, because if it ministers to you, chances are it will minister to somebody else, and you can share that with them. You know, I've been looking at my friends' posts recently, some things going on in the world, and sometimes we're reacting with such disgust at what other people say. We're so amazed that they would say something like that, or we're just shocked that someone would do something that's so evil to the point that we can't believe mankind would be capable of something like that. If you're a believer, I want to encourage you, number one, to remember that which you've been saved from. Remember the darkness of the sin in your life and where God has brought you. Number two, if you're not a believer, look at the darkness that you're struggling with. Things going on in your life, sin going on in your life, things that you know are not pleasing to God, and you may not know what to do about that. I would encourage you to take a look at Jesus Christ. Consider him, because he will bring freedom from that sin into your life. He will bring a new way of life that will be transformative if you just turn to him and ask him to be a part of your life. Understanding sin is so important for us. We need to know how dark and what we're really capable of when we walk in sin. Because for two reasons. One, like I've already said, if you're saved, you need to remember the darkness that you've been saved from. You need to remember where God has brought you from. And then number two, we got to remember that there are others who are still in bondage to it, who are still in darkness, who need freedom. And we have the gospel message that is capable of bringing that freedom. It wasn't God who brought sin and evil into this world. It wasn't the devil who even opened up the door to sin and evil. It was mankind. It was our ancestor Adam who opened the door and allowed sin to come in. It was our ancestor Adam who made mankind subservient and succumbed us to the sin nature, who succumbed us to that darkness. Man will always seek for himself. Man seeks for himself. He seeks his own way. He will deny God's way. He will turn from God's way. That is the true darkness of sin. And in light of that, I want you to remember two important things. Number one, remember who we're fighting against. Ephesians 6:12 says this: "For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities in the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in heavenly places." When someone puts evil out in the world, when you see someone walking in the nature that they're born with, which is evil, and you're just unbelievably disgusted at what they're capable of, please remember who we're fighting against. Don't pray against them. Don't be so quick to condemn them, but pray for them. Realize the evil which they walk in. It's theirs. Look, I'm not gonna allow anybody off the hook. It may be theirs, but it's because that is all mankind really knows without Jesus. Without Jesus, man only knows evil. They're in bondage to it. They have no choice but to walk in it. And when you fight for that soul, or when you're fighting for people, or when you're fighting against evil, you're not fighting against that flesh and blood you see. You're fighting against the very evil that they're succumbed to, the very evil they're enslaved to. You're fighting against the enemy behind them, the enemy that drives them as a taskmaster, the enemy that pushes them. People are slaves to sin. They're not the taskmasters of sin. They're the slaves to it. Number two, if you've been freed from Jesus Christ, remember, you did nothing. He's the one that found you. He's the one that spoke to you, and he's the one that filled you. Paul writes about this in 1 Corinthians 15:10. He says, "But God treated me with an undeserved grace. He made me what I am." Oh, what an awesome statement. And his grace wasn't wasted. I worked much harder than any of the other apostles, although it was really God's grace at work and not me. If you no longer walk in the shadow of evil, you've been freed from it in Jesus Christ. Remember that it's God's grace that's protecting you. It's God's grace that gives you that freedom. Why is that so important? You might, because it's not something that's born within us, but it's something that's born from our relationship with Christ. You might say today, where's all the joy in this, Pastor Jason? This is pretty dark. Well, one, remember, we're in a war. We're in a war for people's souls. This is not candy and lollipops out here. We are in a war for people's eternal souls. If they don't have Jesus, they will suffer eternal condemnation. Number two, where's the joy? The joy is in Jesus. Freedom from sin is bought in the sacrifice that he made in his resurrection, and he gives it to us freely. Grace that comes from Jesus Christ is superior, unadulterated, in reach for everyone kind of grace. That is something awesome, and that is something to be that is praiseworthy. God bless you. Have an awesome day.